Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of ManageEngine Applications Manager's free training series. Let us take a quick look at the agenda for today's webinar, which I've split across four different parts, and we'll be navigating through each of these parts and see the capabilities of the product with respect to each of these. The first of which is automating application discoveries and mapping dependencies, which is ideally an automated discovery process. That is, the product triggers a discovery process, and it adds all of the applications and servers within the applications manager console. And then it also offers a business view which helps you see the dependencies, that is the relationship between various servers and applications in your IT ecosystem. Second thing that we'll see is to monitor your physical and virtual servers, and this means the key parameters that admins need to monitor when it comes to your infrastructure elements across the physical and virtual setups like CPU, disk, the CPU, disk, memory, etc. And then we have AI-based fault management functions, wherein we will see the different uh, features within the fault management module, beginning with threshold profiling, anomaly profiling, and machine learning based threshold profiling. Then we'll see how to associate these thresholds to various alarms, and then how to associate these alarms with various automated actions that can help minimize a lot of manual work involved in case of certain issues. So basically configuring various functions within the fault management module is what we'll see there. And finally, we'll come to one of the most important aspects of infrastructure monitoring, which involves capacity planning. And this capacity planning can only be possible with detailed insights about the growth and utilization of your servers, the disk and CPU utilization of your servers. And based on that, the graphical representation should give you a clear picture as to how soon your servers might run out of memory and how to proactively decide your capacity planning goals. So moving quickly onwards to the first topic in today's agenda, that is automating application discovery and map dependencies. Within Applications Manager, discovery process is enabled with the help of three different ways. The first and the most common of which is the IP range based discovery, wherein you just enter a range, your IP address range, and Applications Manager will start pinging all devices within that range and then check and identify if there are any applications, any servers discovered within that range, and if there are any applications hosted on those servers, and it will list all of them for the user to select and add within the console. We also have the CIDR way of discovery and also a VMware discovery to discover all your virtual machines from VMware. If you notice this screen, this is what the discovery process looks like once it is triggered and once it is completed. The first image here shows how the discovery process is initiated once you click the Start Discovery button after configuring your range. So once this uh, discovery process is complete, you will be presented with the image that you see at the bottom of this screen, that is how many devices were discovered and how many applications were running, and you can select or deselect the different servers and applications and choose to add them within the console. So what I'm going to do now is quickly go to the product and show you a quick glimpse of how the discovery process works within Applications Manager. So if you notice my cursor, I'm here. I click on the admin tab, and right here you see this option that says add/discover. So what I do is I click here, and right here you will see the option of discovery. So when I click this discovery option, you will see that a few of the discovery that I have already created have already been added here. So what you have to do in order to trigger a new discovery is click on add new, and right here you will have to name your discovery. If you have saved certain credentials for that particular discovery, you can use those, or you can just go ahead and continue your discovery by entering the range, selecting the type, and clicking on discover. Right here, this option is, it will automatically find and list the various types of servers that are running with their default ports, and if you want to change any of those or add a new type of server that you know where the port that it is hosted on, you can choose to do that right here from this screen. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is take you back to this screen, go to discovery again, and I'm just going to click on this icon right here, edit discovery, and I'm going to click on discover just to show you an example of how the discovery process would look and how it would work. So right here, this is what you see was shown in the presentation. Now the discovery has been triggered, and this might take a few minutes for the discovery to be completed. So what I'm going to do now in the meantime is I'll probably go back here. So this is another build that I have. So I kept this for today's webinar purpose because I knew I'd require more than a build to show various functions. So right here again, I'm going back to discovery. And again, I have added a few more discoveries here. So why I came here is to show you that this is how the discovery process would look like. And right here, if we notice, our discovery is still going on. What I'll do is I'll just simply cancel this discovery, and I'll go back here. So what we saw in the previous screen was the discovery process being triggered and actively discovering, pinging various devices and discovering. So what I'll do here is I'll show you what it looks like when the discovery is completed. So I'm just going to click here on the report page, and this is the page that you will get once this discovery is completed here. So let me just go here quickly and show you the reports page. Exactly, this is what we will get once the discovery is completed. And as you noticed in the presentation image, we had the same image but with fewer monitors, that is servers, and here we have with a lot of them. So once the discovery is completed, what we get to know is how many servers were discovered, that is the infrastructure elements, and how many applications were discovered, which means these 32 applications are hosted in any of these 35 or in a couple of these 35 servers. And from here on, what you can do is you can click on these icons and see if there are any applications hosted. So for example, in this particular server, there are no applications hosted. Right here, if you notice, in this particular server, there are two different applications hosted. So two of these 32 applications are hosted on this server. And another interesting fact to note here is Applications Manager will not only discover these hosts and these applications, it is also, if you notice on the right side of your screen, it also segregates them based upon the type of server or application they are. Right here, if you see, there is an option to view application dependency map, which is what we saw as in the second half of the first item on the agenda. So before I show you about the dependency map, I'm going to take you back to the presentation to tell you what dependency mapping exactly is. So the dependency mapping is all of the things that is given in this particular slide. That is, it is a consolidated, holistic view of all the discovered applications within your applications manager console, or within a particular business service group that you would have created. Uh, the second point is another important point, wherein we not just display the connection between a server and an application. For example, a server is hosting, say, an email server. So we don't just show that connection, we also show how one infrastructure element or one particular server is connected to another particular server, and how are those connected applications behaving with each other. So a problem with any particular uh, element or any particular server, how does it affect other connected applications, and how could it possibly impact other connected applications and servers? So that kind of analysis becomes easier with dependency mapping. Again, third and fourth point are in fact, even the fifth one, in fact, these are things that the dependency mapping can do. That is, it can offer a lot of information from a single screen. A quick view can offer a lot of detailed information that would otherwise uh, have to be found by manually going through each of the servers and trying to identify problems. So here is a quick representation of what the dependency map in fact looks like once we have completed the discovery, and we try to visualize a dependency map. So here you see there are various icons and various lines connecting these icons. And of course, if you notice closely, there are icons that are either red or green. And of course, these red and green icons indicate that the health is up or the health is down. So in case you notice right here, so you see this particular Tomcat instance is red, and we can make a safe assumption that the problem here is with the Tomcat server, and not exactly any other connected application or server that is impacting it. Because if you see its connection, the nearest connection is with another Tomcat server, and then it is hosted on a Windows server, both of which are in green, which means the problem lies exclusively within the Tomcat server. And a simple hover over this icon would tell us what the problem is. So let's do that in the product. Apologies for that. So what I'm going to do now is click on this, that is view dependency map. But let's not do this because there are a lot of servers and a lot of applications. So I do not want to complicate it by showing you a lot of information. So what I'm going to do is take right here, maybe this one, and show, yeah, right here. So this is the business view, and I'm just going to drag and drop it. So you can do all of that with the business view. You have the flexibility to rearrange them as you see fit. So let me just quickly make it clearer so everybody can see it. Yes, so right here you see this is our business group, and these are all the various applications servers within this business group. And right here, if I click, or if I just move my cursor over there, I see what the problem is. Since it is in red, I can see what the problem with that particular instance is. And in this case, it is a Windows server, and it tells us the problem with this is, of course, there's a root cause which says the SNMP agent is not running and you need to restart it. It also tells us that the CPU utilization has breached the threshold, and a particular process is down. So these are the reasons contributing to the downtime of this one. And similarly, right here, you see there are certain reasons for this instance of a Windows 8 server. Similarly, for this instance of Linux. So right here, a single screen, you notice, can give us a lot of insights about which one is healthy and available, which one is actually unhealthy and unavailable, and if they are not healthy and available, what is the problem that is keeping them from performing to its maximum potential. And of course, right here you can see a few options to just configure the map view. So whichever way you want, if you want to change the look and feel of these map views, you can configure them from here. So that is it about the discovery and the dependency mapping processes. What I'll do now is I'll go back to the presentation. So I hope it is clear to all attendees, the first part of today's agenda. Assuming so, I'll move ahead to the next part, which is monitoring your physical and your virtual servers. So when we talk about server monitoring or infrastructure monitoring, there are certain parameters that we need to prioritize, and those parameters, most of those parameters are what are listed on this screen. So of course, it begins uh, by default with monitoring the key parameters, that is CPU, memory, and disk utilization. But apart from the three core parameters for infrastructure monitoring, that is CPU, memory, and disk, what we also need to monitor are parameters like network, which tells us what is the status of the network connectivity and the network adapter. This can help rule out problems on the network side, or identify whether the problems are on the server side or the problem is on the network side. So this insight will probably bring that transparency and eliminate uh, the constant to and fro between the server and network teams when it comes to diagnosing and resolving issues. Then again, other parameters include processes, that is Windows processes or Linux processes running on your server. This also includes scheduled tasks and jobs as well. So, and in fact, even services. So, as we just noticed in the dependency map, we noticed one of the root cause for with the Windows server was that the Chrome service was down. So, those are the kind of services that you can add within the product and monitor. Of course, if you enable event log monitoring, you would be able to collect event logs for your servers. And finally, last but not the least, and quite often one overlooked aspect of infrastructure monitoring is the hardware parameters, and sometimes these hardware parameters can also contribute to server downtimes. And right here, if you notice, this is a list of various parameters that one would be able to monitor when we come to server monitoring. And since the entire core of our agenda today, and in fact, given the importance of infrastructure monitoring to IT teams, it is important to have visibility beyond just the parameters that we saw in the previous slide. So when we talk about CPU and memory and disk utilization, what we ideally are talking about are detailed minute information like these that you see on the left under the title attribute name, and not just monitor them but monitor them closely by associating thresholds to them, so we know if there is a particular critical parameter that is excuse me, that is behaving irregularly. You will be able to immediately identify it and rectify the problem. And again, I cannot overstate this enough, because hardware issues are not as frequent, but if overlooked, they can happen. And when they do happen, they cause a lot more damage and downtime to the server than any regular server issue. So it is important to keep an eye on some of the hardware parameters, some of which you can see on the right half of this screen. So what we will do now is go back to the product once again and try to see a few of the parameters that we saw. So right here, if you notice under the category servers, here you see Windows. So what I'm going to do is click on one Windows server. Let me just go here and take this build. Yeah, I'm just going to click on the Windows server here, and you see there are 6 different servers that are already added within the console. What I'm going to do is maybe take one example. Yeah, right here. So this is what the inside of a server page looks like. And in this case, what I've done is selected a Windows 2012 server that's been added within the Applications Manager console already. And now if we look at this particular screen, this is just the overview screen. And as I scroll down, you will see the summarized information about the CPU, the memory, and the disk utilization of this particular server instance, the memory, the split up of the memory, and in fact the breakup of CPU utilization. Since we have not added any processes or services, there are none listed here, but of course you see there is an option to do that here as well. And right here on the right, you can see you will be able to associate processes, services, scheduled tasks, scripts, and even URLs associated with this particular Windows server. So all of that can be done when we're talking about a particular server. So what I'm going to do now is show you the CPU details. Right here, if you see, this is the CPU utilization by CPU cores, and this is the breakup of those cores within the CPU. So 15 cores, and what are the performance parameters of those cores, you will see as graphs here, and of course in a listed format here. So a quick look next at the disk space. This is basically the disk utilization parameters with graphical as well as listed representation. And then again, this kind of information is what is important for us to uh, decide or to decide and plan our monitoring goals, because we should always ensure that the disk space in the right drives are always available to support the critical applications running on our servers. So next, I'll quickly show you the network details. And right here, you can see the interface details. Below is the adapter details. If you have your firewall details that is enabled, those will be captured and shown here. So right here is this traffic and speed details. So this is, yeah, all in all about the network parameters within server monitoring. So this will help us identify if there is a problem with the network side. And if you identify that here, you will be able to avoid the hassle of actually trying to find the problem on the server side. So this is just about the Windows server. So what I'm going to show you is some of the other parameters. Let's just go to maybe a virtual machine, and we'll just take a look at them over there. So yeah, what I'm going to do is under virtualization, if you notice, there are many different virtualization software. Hyper-V is right here, VMware is right here. Let me just take a quick example of VMware, and what I'm going to do is, yeah, right here you will see for this particular instance of VMware ESX server, you get similar information about the CPU memory utilization, the disk and network utilization, and all of that. However, one very important parameter here, so all of these details are similar to a server for this particular virtual server. This is something that could be really important to admins, and this is basically the storage adapter and storage mapping details of your virtual server. So this again can give you a quick insight about which particular instance has a problem, and diagnosing and then troubleshooting the issue accordingly. So That's it about the core parameters when we are considering Windows and virtual machines. I would just quickly want to show you these screens as well. Let me just apologizing for that. Just go here. Yeah. So if I click on Add Process Monitoring, these are all the processes that are running on this particular instance that the product has already discovered from me. All I have to do is select the processes I want to add and click on Add Process, and I should be good to go with my monitoring. And right here, similarly, I click on Add Services, all of the different services running on my server. The same happens for scripts. And right here, if I click on hardware monitoring, these are the parameters that we saw in the presentation screen as well. So what I'm going to do now is just keep this right here as it is and go back to the presentation so we can take a look at the next part on today's agenda, which is the fault management uh, module of Applications Manager. So a quick look first at some of the uh, screenshots, that is a visualization of what it looks like, and then we will go back to the product and see how it actually works. So right here you see that the product supports threshold profiles, and these are threshold profiles that are uh, static as well as adaptive thresholds. And quite recently what we have done is we've also successfully introduced a machine learning based threshold profiling. And what this does is basically it eases your uh, configuration process of thresholds for various different servers and types of parameters and all of that. So just enabling machine learning will make sure that the product will automatically configure your thresholds based on historical value, the best historical baseline values. So on your left is when you create a threshold, what you can do is associate a severity with it based upon the threshold values, whether it's a critical issue, a warning issue, or a clear or clear alarm. And on your right, you see that actually configuring thresholds is that's how it looks like. We also have anomaly profiles. And anomaly profiling is basically identifying gradual degradation of your servers by associating baseline values. And these are dynamic baseline values that take the best performance baseline from the date range that you specify, like week 1 or week 2, and then uses that as a reference, as a marker to measure all other anomaly profiles and hence generate an alarm or not based on that data. And of course, not just thresholds and anomaly profiles, what the process would be rather incomplete if these thresholds were not associated with any particular alarms and actions. So what happens is once these thresholds are breached, an immediate alarm is raised, and this alarm could be one of the actions mentioned here, that is an email or an SMS a notification. So once this happens, the user or the admin is immediately notified, and then again the alarm can be followed up by associating it with a troubleshooting action such as the actions mentioned here. For example, execute program, or a log a ticket action, or a Slack action. So these are various types of actions. Now one good example could be, for example, let's consider that there's a problem with one of our virtual machines and we need to restart the virtual machine to resolve the issue. So what we can do is configure an action, a virtual machine action, and this action would be a restart virtual machine action, and we can associate this action with a particular threshold. So every time the particular threshold for the virtual machine is breached, the VM restart is automatically triggered. Similarly, if there is a problem with, say, a Java application, we can configure an automated action to generate thread dumps or heap dumps or trigger garbage collection should that particular threshold be breached. So just quickly again, so we'll go back to the product once we've quickly looked at this screen. So I think when we went to the product console in the previous slides, I think a few of you would have noticed these kind of information at the very top of a monitor screen. So basically what the product does is it not just tells you that a particular server is down or a particular parameter is down, it gives you a detailed root cause analysis. uh, if you remember, even in the dependency map, when I had hovered over a particular Windows server, it told us that a particular service was down or a particular threshold was breached. So that is the step-by-step breakdown of the problem, the root cause of the problem that the product is able to identify and present to users so as to easily start the troubleshooting, or rather quickly start the troubleshooting process. So anyway, getting back to the product and taking a look at, maybe let's say what I do is right here, if you notice, I'm in the Windows Server page, right? So let's come step by step, and let me just first go to this particular option here, and what I'm doing is I'm clicking on configure alarms. So this is how I'm going to configure an alarm for a particular instance of a Windows server. And when I do that, all of the parameters associated with the Windows server is shown here. Right here is the threshold, associating options, and right here are anomalies. So what I'm going to do is just click on this associate, and right here you see that I've come to the threshold configuration page. And here the attribute that I'm trying to set a threshold for is the response time, and here is the threshold profile. So what I am trying to do now is either I can select here any of the threshold profiles that I have already created, or I can click this and create a new threshold profile. I'm not going to click this now and take you to another page. I'm going to show you how to create a new threshold profile from the actual threshold page. So it gets listed here and then you can associate it. In any case, remember, you can always come here and click on this icon, to this option, to create a threshold and associate it. And when you click on this means that the particular setup, this particular setup will be applied to all the Windows 10 monitors present in the console. If I click on machine learning, you have to do nothing but just let the product work and do its job, and time and again check if there are any thresholds being reached, or anything that is causing a hindrance to optimal performance. Clicking on this will give us some actions that we will have to pre-configure. So which means this particular action, for example, I've created an action called error mail. I can move this on this side, and what this does is, for this particular attribute that I've kept as, the threshold will be configured based on machine learning by the product itself. And this is the action that will be triggered for a critical warning. So again, we will go back and see how to create a new threshold profile, how to create a new automated action. But before I do that, let me click on anomaly details and quickly show you the anomaly profiles as well. Right here, you see select anomaly profile. That's just one that I have already created right here. And if you see, the baseline date range is here. and these are the upper and lower limits of that particular baseline. Right here is the screenshot that we saw in the product for anomaly profiles. So I'm just going to close this one over here, and I'm going to stay on this one, close this one as well. Yeah. So right here, if you're following my cursor, you see there's an option to either create a new threshold profile or view threshold profiles. Let's first go to view threshold profiles, which will show us all the threshold profiles that we have in the product. You can click here and create a new threshold profile, excuse me, and these threshold profiles can be created for numeric, string, as well as float values. Again, for different severities, different configurations. I'm going to click on this one. Remember, we had spoken about threshold profile, we had spoken about adaptive thresholding, and we've spoken about anomaly profiles right here. So again, this is how you actually create a threshold profile, and it will stay within the console, and you can associate them with any server or any application within the console. The next, I'm going to click on configure alarms. Configure alarms is, we saw how to configure alarms. This screen we had seen previously when we had navigated from within a server. Right here, what you can do is select the type of server that you want to monitor. For example, I'm just clicking on Windows. So what it does is it is finding all monitor types from Windows. I'm selecting this one, and again coming back to the screen. In fact, what this does is it helps us actually configure and apply alarms across monitor groups. And monitor groups are basically business service groups. So you see, I can associate an alarm template to all similar monitors within say all monitors within a business service group, or I can associate these templates with all similar monitors. For example, all Windows 10 servers should have a particular template. So that is the kind of changes you will be able to do here. And finally, right here are the actions. So all of the actions that you can configure. Let me just quickly click on view actions to see the various actions that will be shown once you have already added them. These are all email actions, execute program actions, SNMP trap actions, cloud actions, and Windows service actions. And some details about, obviously this is one thing that we like to do within the product, that is offer tool tips to contextually within the product to enable users to more quickly and easily get a hold of the product and start monitoring all aspects. So again, having explored the fault management uh, functions of the product, what we'll do now is go back to the product for the final item that we had on today's agenda, and that is capacity planning by analyzing the utilization and growth reports. Excuse me. So, excuse me. Capacity planning within Applications Manager is facilitated with the help of two particular reports, one of which is the capacity planning report by itself, and the other one is the machine learning powered forecasting reports, which accurately predicts the utilization and growth statistics of your servers, or the utilization statistics of various parameters across applications, and give you an idea about how soon or how late are these parameters likely to cross the threshold zones and start throwing alerts. So this here is the exact representation of what a capacity planning report would look like. In this example, we can see 5 instances of a Windows server, of which we notice that one of the Windows server is actually undersized, and that is because the memory utilization of that particular server has exceeded the threshold conditions that we have set. And right here at this, in the second half of the screen, you can see the threshold configuration for that particular for these Windows servers. So based upon your regular usage parameters of the servers, you should be able to arrive at a clear threshold that should tell you that breaching this threshold is a concern, and this means that uh, the Windows server or the server in fact is either oversized or undersized, and basically its CPU or memory or disk utilization is the parameter that is causing this problem, and use that insight to uh, probably expand the capacity of your server or add new servers to your system ecosystem. And then this finally is the forecast report. Right here you see there are circular icons that give us the various time frame, that is 2 months, 3 months to up to 2 years, and some custom duration. And the graph is a representation of the forecast by growth trend, while right at the bottom what you see is the list view of the growth trend. Right here what we are seeing is basically just the data file size of a database, and so we are seeing only the growth trend. But if we visualize the forecasting reports for servers, we will see not just the growth trend but also utilization trend. So I'll show that to you in the product, but before we see the reports, let me just quickly show you another type of a report that we have which could really be useful, which is called the audit logs. And this is nothing but, if you are an administrator, you will be able to see any and every change that is made by any other user within the applications manager console. So I'm just going quickly to the product, and right here what I'm going to do is click on the reports tab, and you see there are a ton of reports here within the product, but I'm just going to click on capacity planning. Click on, let's take an example of the undersized servers, and this is exactly the kind of image that we saw in the presentation, I believe. And right here if you see there are 6 different types of servers. Some of them are Windows, one is the Oracle Solaris, and there's one Linux and one AIX server. And we see that the first two are actually undersized, and these are the reasons for it. Of course, you can have your own notes here that you can use for reference to decide when the capacity would go beyond expectations and you would want to uh, increase that capacity. Right here is the forecast report. Yeah, let's take a look at disk utilization of servers. We should be able to see this report based on growth as well as utilization when we're talking about servers. So yeah, right here, there it is. So on the left is the forecast by growth trend, and on the right is the forecast by utilization. And if you see for the first 4 of these servers, they have already crossed beyond 80, which is the zone where the real trouble begins, and 2 of them are deep inside the 90 to 100 zone, which means they require immediate attention. And the same information can be seen right here in the list format, where you see 2 of the monitors or servers are beyond 90% utilization, and that is a real concern. So that is what we need to solve. So just going to close this and click on admin icon here and drag my cursor to the audit logs part to show you quickly what exactly we will see in the audit logs. So right here is the admin, the host name of the admin, and the exact description of the action taken by that particular user, and along with its timestamp. So that is pretty much it about the audit logs. And that also brings us to the end of this webinar session. So what I would want to do now is quickly give you a recap of what we saw so we all stay in the same page. And so what we saw today was how to configure the discovery process, configure the range, and trigger a discovery. Once a discovery is completed, how to select and add the servers or applications that we want to monitor, and how to visualize the dependencies between different servers and applications that are added within a particular business service or added within our applications manager console. Then we saw some of the key parameters that we need to monitor as administrators when it comes to our physical and virtual servers. We also saw the storage mapping details when we were talking about virtual machines, ESX and Hyper-V and all of those. Third, we saw the various functionalities associated with the fault management module of Applications Manager. And then finally, we saw the growth and utilization reports and how these reports can be used for capacity planning.